My name is Brooke Van Duzen, and I started my career in gaming by helping to launch Twitch all the way back in 2011. Later, I helped found Twitch's developer relations effort, and I gave studios a lot of advice about how to launch games on the Twitch platform. And after working there for 6 years, I finally decided to throw my hat in the ring and go work on a game. I joined a game studio called Outpost Games. The studio was Benchmark and Time Warner funded. We raised about $19 million in venture capital, and the team was super, super talented. We had members from studios such as EA Visceral, when it still existed, Zynga, Crystal Dynamics, and 343 Industries, among others. I was in charge of community marketing. And our first project was a game called SOS. It was a multiplayer game for PC with a heavy, heavy emphasis on streaming. The game was basically Battle Royale meets the TV show Survivor. And it turned out that the idea of role-playing as a contestant on a fictional reality TV show proved infectious. Before we knew it, we had a hit on our hands. Our very first alpha was way more popular than we ever expected. Our first public playtest, the first time anyone had access to the game, we peaked at number 4 on Twitch. And that was also the first day we opened it up to influencers. Now, based on the ongoing popularity of our alphas and betas, we thought SOS was a sure thing. And at the time, we wanted to start selling access to these alphas and betas. But unfortunately, as many of you might know, the platform rules at the time prevented us from doing so. We were given 0 favors. So we continued to give away hundreds of thousands of keys, and we thought our marketing was working because so many people were signing up. And as a result, we continued to hire for our studio aggressively. So we rode into early access with sky-high expectations. And finally, the day we launched, when we threw up the paywall for the very first time, reality hit us like a ton of bricks. Our game wasn't converting. Now, they say you learn a whole lot more through failure than success, and that's true. We certainly learned a heck of a lot in those first few days and weeks after that launch. We learned that we priced the game too high. We thought our Twitch success meant we were on the path to becoming the next PUBG. We got review bombed for being overpriced for the relatively small amount of content our game offered. We learned that we had a serious problem with refunds. We learned that our performance marketing, which was so effective at driving people to a free sign-up form, didn't actually work when you replaced that form with a paywall. And I don't know if anyone here has ever been a part of a botched game launch, but immediately people start questioning everything. Were we positioning the game correctly? Were our screenshots, our creatives, our key messaging, was it effective? Did we lean too much into the reality show aspect of SOS, maybe at the expense of the Battle Royale elements? And the fact is, we just didn't have a strong business plan or launch strategy in place. So our launch failed, and sadly today, Outpost Games no longer exists. This was definitely, by far, the hardest part of my professional career. But I learned a heck of a lot from that experience, and that failure was a big part of my motivation for coming to Xsolla. I wanted to make it easier for studios to have successful launches and to show them how to avoid similar disasters. At Xsolla, I spent a lot of time coaching developers on launch strategies, but also learning from them. We've worked with over 2,000 studios, and so we've seen a heck of a lot. And today, I'm going to share with you one of the most impactful launch strategies I've ever seen. One studio who's used it to great success is Bluehole, creators of PUBG. This strategy helps to protect you against bad experiences like I had with SOS. And in the end, this strategy will help you make more money. But before jumping headlong into it, I want to talk a little bit about how game publishing has evolved over the years, leading us to where we are today. So, in the beginning, there was game publishing 1.0, or the big box model. This one is simple. You launch your game, and players go buy it. It includes games like Uncharted or Tetris. And there's a lot to like here, specifically how these games generate a lot of publicity right on release day. But the downside is that you're investing a ton of money developing a game with really little to no idea how it's actually going to be received. And sure, players might think your game is fun in play tests or other areas, but does that actually mean that they're going to go and fork over money to buy it? And if they do, how much are they going to pay? Now, large publishers, they have data from hundreds of game releases. So for them, it's a calculated risk. But if you're independent and you might be releasing your first game, you have no idea. Then, about 8 or 9 years ago, what I like to call game publishing 2.0 came along. And it helped even the playing field in some ways. Services like Early Access and Kickstarter allowed developers to make money before launch. And critically, it also helped them understand what the market demand was for what they were offering before they launched. And for me, the defining moment of this period was in 2012, when Tim Schafer went to Kickstarter with Broken Age. And I remember seeing this campaign when it first launched and thinking how cool it was that I could follow along with the game's development cycle. I signed up immediately. It was my very first Kickstarter pledge. And at the time, this was a hugely innovative idea. It allowed players to become a part of the game's development by giving feedback, and allowed for studios to tap directly into consumer interest. A good example here is the System Shock Kickstarter, where a cult classic was revived. And another great thing Kickstarter did was mitigate the risks of game development. Developers could judge interest in their game before they sunk a lot of time into it and bail out if the game was trending the wrong way. For instance, Craig Stern's Kickstarter project, Telepath Tactics, died a quick and relatively painless death after not meeting its funding goal. However, based on the feedback he received from that first Kickstarter, he was able to pivot his project. He changed his focus from multiplayer to single player and relaunched his campaign a couple months later, successfully. Unfortunately, game publishing 2.0 has changed over time. Kickstarter is no longer really a viable option for funding games that are still in the prototype or pre-prototype phase. Backers today kind of expect the game to have a clearly defined idea and to be well underway. And likewise, consumer expectations for early access have inflated. Players don't want in-development buggy games. After Bossa Studios successfully launched into early access for Surgeon Simulator and I Am Bread, they went back to EA a third time for Worlds Adrift. And when Worlds Adrift launched into early access, many players deemed Worlds Adrift too early for early access. And as a result, Bossa was forced to replace their Steam trailer with a video disclaimer, letting new players know that, hey guys, this game is actually still a work in progress. So another downside is that if you want to generate income in early access, you have to make your game available 24/7, 365. And as many of you know, maintaining a live game and community is exhausting. So in our opinion, developers need more pre-launch options. They need options that give them more and better feedback and mitigate the risk of launch. But that simply isn't possible with these two models. They're all or nothing propositions. Going back to my experience with SOS, we really wanted to start taking pre-orders while the alpha was on fire. That would have helped in so many ways. It would have helped with pricing. We could have understood which price points were fair and resonate with our audience. It could have helped with our marketing. We could have optimized our performance marketing and on an actual paywall, and we could have seen what kind of messaging drives consumer action. It would have helped with our development and given us deeper insights into some problems. We could have seen the refund problem and done something about it. And it would have helped with our studio funding. We could have used the playtest to generate a brand new revenue stream while limiting player access to prevent burnout. Remember, the downside of early access is that your game's open all the time. And it would have helped build our community. We could have given our alpha and beta backers, the people that paid to be a part of our early community, rewards. PUBG did this really well. When people pre-ordered PUBG, they got about 5 skins, some of which now sell for $1,000 on player marketplaces. These items give players street cred. They're like, I knew this game before it was cool. And most importantly, it would have helped us judge actual player interest. We thought people were willing to buy our game, when really they only wanted to take a free ride. This would have helped us see through our own hype. And I honestly believe that having this early data would have meaningfully changed the trajectory of our game. Instead of hiring more people to expand the game, we would have doubled down on fixing core issues, like a bad first-time user experience. But we couldn't do that, because Game Publishing 2.0 doesn't give you these options. It's a step in the right direction, but only incrementally. So we call our solution Game Publishing 3.0. And we recommend it to any studio who wants to upgrade their game into a successful business. The idea is much like the development of your game itself. You treat your marketing as something to be improved from the very beginning. After all, you spend months, if not years, testing and iterating your game through play tests and QA and stress tests. And why do all that work but never once test your marketing? Game Publishing 3.0 is the difference between hoping and praying and executing on a plan. And the great thing about the Game Publishing 3.0 model is that it allows you to battle test every aspect of your marketing and consumer offering to ensure that when you do launch, as many players buy it as possible. And to be clear, I'm not only talking about buying ads or doing PR. Marketing, as I defined it, is every interaction a player has with your game before booting up the software on the day of launch. This means every screenshot, every video, every article players read or social post they interact with. Each pre-launch interactions like this give players a small window into what your game is and how it will be experienced. And vice versa, by measuring these interactions, you are given the opportunity to understand consumer preferences. And while good marketing can't overcome a bad game, bad marketing certainly can sink a solid ship. So if you fine-tune your marketing at every step during your development, just like you fine-tune your gameplay, you can head into your launch confident in the presentation of your game. Now that you guys have an understanding of what Game Publishing 3.0 is, let's dive in and figure out how to make it happen. And to be clear, the goal here isn't to give you all a one-size-fits-all guide. Each game is unique, and as such, should have a marketing campaign that reflects its unique attributes and strengths. But that being said, some of the tactics here can apply to almost everyone. So a lot of marketing advice I see in gaming kind of tends to revolve around this idea of starting your marketing early. But how early should you start? Well, in my opinion, you should start as soon as you've committed to a final version of exactly what your game is. And for many projects, this comes before the team even starts building anything. But for others, it's after an extensive prototyping and testing phase. But either way, once you know that you're going to be building a single-player, story-driven platformer with roguelike elements and a film noir-inspired art style, you should start building both the game and the business. And I'm not talking about simply going out and pitching your game at a few trade shows. I'm talking about developing your marketing product, which what I mean by that is the game's visual language, its messaging, its branding. In other words, everything that will affect players' overall perception of your game before they actually boot up your software. Through feedback loops and data collection, you can make dramatic improvements to your game's presentation and vastly increase your chances of a successful launch. So, the easiest way to get started here is by building a website. I know it sounds basic, but nearly half the games that release on Steam today don't even have one. And frankly, I can imagine why. Building a website seems like a huge pain in the ass. But today, I hope I can change your mind, because a website is the foundation for your game's marketing. Because building a website forces you to decide on your game's key art. It forces you to decide on messaging. It requires you to decide which aspects of your game you want consumers to see first. And by starting here as early as possible, you can improve and refine your marketing product over the course of your development. And Site Builder is a tool at Xsolla that we created to help you do exactly that. It creates great looking game websites. And it's mobile adaptive so that when people visit your site from their phone, which is about half of internet traffic today, the layout doesn't break. And best of all, it's very intuitive and easy to use, allowing you to focus on what's important here, your game's messaging. All you have to do is provide the text, drop in some art assets, and pick out a URL. Now your project has a home where people can go and learn about it. And while they're there, they can sign up for your mailing list. See how easy that was? You're already building an audience. And you're getting a signal. You can now gauge public interest from the number of visitors who sign up. So, next step, once you're starting to feel good about your game's consumer appeal, is you'll want to go ahead and start taking pre-orders. We're giving a talk specifically on pre-order content design and founder packs later today at 2:40. I strongly encourage you guys to attend. But the truncated version is our store tool can help you design and launch compelling pre-order content bundles for your game. Now, ideally, the launch of your pre-order campaign should be aligned with some kind of beat. You know, this could be rolling off a successful crowdfunding campaign. It could be an exclusive announcement you've arranged with Kotaku or some other site, or could be accompanied by the launch of your very first trailer. Let me give you an example of how this might look in real life. Phoenix Point generated some buzz and raised about $750,000 through the crowdfunding platform Fig. But that was just the beginning. This was the first iteration of their marketing product, and it obviously worked really well. But after crowdfunding wrapped up, they didn't sit on their laurels. Snapshot Games took the best elements from their campaign, reworked them into founder packs, and launched them with Xsolla. Then they created a landing page using our Site Builder tool and made the announcement that they were taking pre-orders. As a result, they built on that game's early momentum. And each step of the way, they were able to iterate on what worked. At last check, this game is earning $100,000 a month from pre-orders. And in total, they've earned over $2 million. And the game hasn't even been released. Now that's the power of game publishing 3.0. So now that your pre-orders are live, you should start working on your distribution. Remember all those people who signed up for your mailing list? Well, now that you know who they are and have their email addresses, you can start using that information for online advertising. And this doesn't have to be guesswork. Once you have enough emails, you can head over to Facebook, use their ad manager to create what's known as a lookalike audience. And what Facebook does is analyze the demographics of these people, and they'll give you a similar list of people with similar interests. And now you have what's known as a target audience. And hopefully some of them will go pre-order the game. Now, depending on the number of these conversions, this is the best judge of the effectiveness of your visuals and as messaging as you've ever had. And you can refine it as needed. Then, once you feel like you understand your demographic, it's time to expand your reach. You can run ads in subreddits. You can run ads on MMO Hut. You can run ads wherever the audience you've identified hangs out. And the best part is this doesn't need to be expensive. The goal here is ROI positive ads, which is limited by the audience size that you're able to target. But the real point here is that you're understanding your audience and honing your marketing. So once you're satisfied with this strategy and you're starting to see a good return on investment, our tool partner network lets you expand this reach. We have a directory of over 50 affiliate networks, which will run ads for you on various sites around the internet. And every time a consumer clicks on these ads and buys the game, a preset amount of revenue will be shared with these affiliates. This technique can drive traffic in a big way. For example, Life is Feudal netted over $200,000 in gross revenue on their pre-orders exclusively with the Xsolla affiliate program. So now that you've cultivated your audience, you've built an effective marketing funnel, it's time to pull back the curtain. As your game progresses into a playable build, you'll want to start giving players alpha and beta access. But don't give this away for free. This is valuable stuff. Our research shows that alpha and beta access is the #1 reason why people pre-order games. So you should already have this price built into your founder packs. Now, others can still sign up, but the people who bought your founders packs will be the one that gets first crack. And using our white-labeled Xsolla launcher and login products, you can control access to exactly who has access to your game. And of course, alphas and betas aren't only about making money. They can help you understand a player's user experience and show you which parts of your game need work. But while these alphas and betas are going on, I recommend also experimenting with your pricing structure. Using our store tool, you can put your founder packs on sale and find out if giving a discount leads to a worthwhile boost in sales. This way, after launch, when you want to put your game on sale for real, this data will serve you well. And you can also use Xsolla's couponing system to create unique discount codes for events or other digital campaigns, giving you more data and insights into the performance of your various marketing activities. Finally, as launch day nears, you should make sure to give content creators access to your game. Influencer marketing is an increasingly more important method for driving sales. Now, personally, I recommend waiting as long as possible here, maybe a few days before launch, so your game is as polished as possible for giving creators access. But either way, when your game is ready to go, our partner network tool lets you easily distribute game keys to influencers on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Mixer. It also can be used to motivate influencers to play your game through revenue sharing programs. This tool gives you feedback on which influencer channels resonate with your game and drive the most sales. You can all learn how to get influencers excited about your game and involved in your marketing in my next talk today. That's at 4 o'clock. And remember, all of this is happening pre-launch. So, we've covered a lot. Now, before I wrap things up, I want to know, does anyone here have any questions? Go for it.
So, you talked a lot about pre-launch and stuff, but if you actually could do a parallel with mobile games, how would that help us?
So, the question is, I talked a lot about pre-launch. What's the parallel with mobile games? Mobile games are very different because they do soft launches, which is a feature where they launch specifically in a territory. I would say it's kind of the same thing. Very few professional businesses that run mobile games that I know will launch a game worldwide without some type of soft launch. And I've also seen studios soft launch a game and kill it because it didn't perform, because then they just save themselves the headache of having to do a global launch. So it's a different method, and it's dependent on having enough players in a certain territory to get the data they need to test whether that game is going to be a successful business, but it's exactly the same idea. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because basically you usually don't have like pre-sales. I mean, you could have, but
Sure.
if you're free to play, that's a big challenge. Like how to get revenue streams in a free to play sort of game
Yep.
without charging for early access.
So for many of our clients who have free-to-play games, so this could include Phoenix Lab with Dauntless, QC Games with Breach coming up. So those are free-to-play games that used Xsolla to build founder bundles and basically have a premium version of their game before they later launched free-to-play. And in those cases, same strategy they talked here, alpha, beta access, things like that, but they also take some of their planned in-game content and wrap it up in a bundle and make those available before they launch the game free. So available for both, and something you could actually technically do through mobile, but we should talk about this after. Yes?
So Steam page has a news section and discussion groups and everything. So would you still suggest launching a separate homepage for Steam games?
The question is, Steam has news and discussion and all these features. So you suggest, do I suggest launching a separate homepage? Yes, few reasons. One, Steam doesn't give you any user data. When you sell on Steam, you don't know who these people are. You don't have their email. If you don't have their email, you don't know who they are. You can't figure out who your audience is, right? And then you're kind of back to launching and praying. By having your own website, and by using Xsolla tools, you own all your data. Xsolla is not a platform or a set of tools. And so by selling directly, you get that information. Two, Steam specifically has a program called Early Access, which is great. I love Early Access. The problem is you have to launch your game 24/7, 365, right? And that's time consuming if you're trying to develop and run a game. You could also not be ready for scale. I know for us, we weren't prepared on the technical end to launch our game to users, and we didn't want to launch our game and have everything crash and have people be mad at us. So with Xsolla, you have full control over how many players get access, when they get access, in addition to owning the whole flow end to end. Those are two reasons. We also provide tools like our launcher, our white label launcher, which I wish I had a picture of in this deck, has a news section, so you can still push news and updates to your players. So these are a lot of the advantages of using this. Now, what I'm not suggesting is don't use Steam, right? We're just saying that before you launch on Steam, try to gain some of this understanding, and the more understanding you have with your audience and the more confidence you have in driving your own distribution, the more confident you're going to be in your launch, right? The less guessing you're going to do. And so all of this iteration you're doing on this product, drop that into your Steam page, right? Now it's not like, I think this is what people want. It's, okay, we've been testing this for 2 years. I know this is what people want, right? Does that answer your question? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, sorry, at the mic.
Hey, that's all right. We need the spot on it. Hi, my name's Ralph. I'm from a small game studio from Australia. You said one little vague thing, which was when you've got enough people, then start doing your Facebook marketing. How many people do you like to collect before you start to do that ads analysis?
It's a Facebook limitation, because Facebook doesn't want you to advertise to one person. They find that creepy for good reason. So they require a minimum of 1,000 email addresses to build your first lookalike audience. Okay. And then the iteration loop, right, is as you draw more sales, you're going to get more emails, and you can then build new lookalike audiences and compare them and compare the effectiveness of each, right, along with your marketing messaging and so on and so forth.
Cool. Thanks.
Yep.
Hi, in your 3.0 schedule, you suggested setting up the pre-order launch before setting up the trailer. So what marketing materials do you recommend people include with the pre-order launch?
I think it's unique for every game. I have a friend, studio called Proletariat, who did this with us, did really, really well. And they had a ton of success by making Imgur albums of GIFs of their game. And that worked for them. And they became one of the largest communities on Discord pretty much only through that, right? And that worked for them in their game. So I think it's about, okay, finding a medium that works for you in your game. And whether it's a trailer, whether it's a GIF, whether it's a community you've cultivated through other means that you feel like will give you some insight into whether your price points work. I mean, so one benefit to Xsolla is all of this is zero cost to come set up. So the downside, I would say, is one, literally no one buys your game, which now that I'm saying it, might not be a downside. If you launch a price point for your game and literally 0 people buy it, there might be some questions you need to ask yourself about what you're doing, right? But yeah, like that, I would just say it depends on every game, so I can't give you a good answer. But it's I guess the only thing I don't want you to do is launch and have no supporting anything, right? And have it drive 0 views just because no one sees it, and then you take from that oh, this thing isn't selling, right? So I guess that's probably the only scenario that you'd want to avoid here. Hopefully that helps. I know it's not the best answer.
Yeah, I guess a follow-on is, should you do a soft launch for each of those phases?
So the soft launch model that we were talking about in mobile doesn't really exist on PC. I don't know any PC platform that enables you to launch in like a single country geography like mobile does. I'm sure there's reasons for this. I don't know it off the top of my head. But for me, soft launch is if it's a multiplayer game and you're doing alphas and betas, that's what I would consider a soft launch. For single player games that are content driven, I've seen players take slices of their game and make them available. But again, it depends on what your game is and what you're doing, right? The general accepted strategy is you pick windows of your game and you put them into some media format, whether that's a trailer, whether that's a GIF, and you kind of dole those out. And you every time you do that, you measure impact, right? And so if you're focused on a certain aspect of your game, you should be comparing that against other aspects of your game that you think might be more compelling, just to give you a broad understanding of, okay, this is interesting, but this one's not that interesting, right? Just getting that understanding and getting that exposure will give you that data.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, I was just wondering if you have a solution or recommendation for scaling the collection of user feedback. Since it's so important during pre-sales and during early access, at a certain point, if you're just using something like chat, it starts becoming overwhelming and you kind of struggle to keep up with the feedback. So how do you still keep that as part as you grow?
I don't want to talk about game feedback and I feel like that's what you're asking about, but that's, what I try to leave the game development to there's a lot of people at this conference that do that much better than I do. When it comes to marketing feedback, basically what you want to do is every time you send out a message, right, whether that's in the form of a Facebook ad, whether that's an email, measure it and then compare it, right? And what you'll tend to see, and so email could be an open rate based on a subject line. It could be a click-through. Facebook ads tend to be click-throughs, right? What percentage of the people that saw this clicked on this, and then what percentage of those people went on to buy. So on the marketing side, that's the type of data collection that we're talking about, is measuring and iterating on what it is you're showing about your game and talking about your game. I use some tools for player game feedback that I can talk to you about later. I don't really recommend them, but I'll at least tell you my experience with them, and we can have that conversation afterwards.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool.
Hey. I actually kind of wanted to follow up on that one.
Sure.
Could you maybe help define what success looks like for some of those marketing feedback implements? So like, what is a
Sure.
like successful click-through rate
So-
when you blast out your message or your trailer? Or like what kind of metrics are you looking for?
So the main metric
And
is
what thresholds?
ROI, right? If you spend $100 on ads, do you make $100 back? Do you make $200 back? And to us, that's always the goal, right? Our goal with the amount of performance advertising we do at Xsolla, both with and on behalf of our clients, we're saying, okay, can we get to an ROI of, we're spending 30% of the price of the game to drive sales. So that's the goal. And by getting there, you can actually do it with a couple $100 in this campaign, couple $100 in this campaign, and then as you swap out different messaging and assets and use GIFs and videos and all this different types of media, you're going to start to see a broad spectrum of engagement metrics, and those are the metrics that then you're going to take and say, okay, we've been talking about this game as a mobile-like RTS equivalent, blah, 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 blah. But when we talked about it this way, people found that much more compelling, right? And so those are the feedback signals that you're looking for. And so from a goal standpoint, I would say the goal is ROI positive, but the data is just comparative, right? So it doesn't really matter, what it is. It just matters what it is in reference to everything else you're doing, right? And this also comes to discounts and price points. If you're going to if you're going to do 5 conferences, well, do a unique code for each, give it out, and see how many people redeem it at each show. And then you can say, okay, this show was better than this, and maybe it had something to do with your booth position. But either way, the more data you get, the better your decision making is going to be. It's not always going to be clear, but it's always going to be helpful. Yeah.
I have one question as well.
No, please.
So does Xsolla help developers to get traffic to their websites built with Xsolla or communities?
We do. So in general, I'm going to say this again, Xsolla is not a platform. It's not launched. We don't have 200 million users that buy games that we can push around between our users' websites, right? We give you tools to help you build websites and promote. But we have created tools that help drive traffic. The main one here is a tool we call Partner Network. So this is I referenced it earlier, and that helps you create revenue sharing programs for your games, and we distribute them to 2 sets of customers: affiliate networks and influencers. We have about 50 affiliate networks that we work with, and basically, these things either work really well because your sales funnel's tuned and they can make money off of running ads for your games. Affiliate networks are generally organizations. They either own or have access to really low-cost ad inventory, and they're all over the world, right? Some work in Russia, and some work in Europe, and some work in Asia. But so if your sales funnel works and they're seeing ROI positives, they're going to crank their lever, right? And they're going to start running a lot of ads on your behalf. Then with influencers, same idea. You create a revenue sharing program, you make it available to influencers. We handle, for both customers, we handle all the back end, right? So we do payouts and taxes and things like that. But with influencers, we actually just today announced a partnership with Keymailer, where you can distribute your revenue sharing program to the 650,000 influencers on that platform. And those influencers have a combined 1.25 billion aggregate audience reach. So those are 2 methods in which we help you distribute kind of awareness of your game and these deals to let you guys help drive traffic. The last good thing about this, and I don't think I actually ever talked about this, so the Xsolla fee, our pricing structure is very simple. It's 5%. We take 5% of revenue, and there's no upfront fees. So we only make money if you make money. So our interests are aligned, right? We want you guys to be successful. And the benefit here, though, especially when it comes to these revenue sharing programs, is our low fees give you the flexibility to kind of do more with that margin, right? And so by offering a higher revenue share to affiliate networks, to influencers, you're going to see a lot more convert. And we've seen that with a lot of places. So yeah, I have 4 o'clock. I talk more about this if you guys want to come. Is that it? Cool. All right. Well, quickly wrap up, guys. Oh, that's backwards. The whole point of Game Publishing 3.0 is to give you a better understanding into whether your marketing strategy is working. With Xola's tools, you can battle test your marketing strategy in many different ways. You can build a website with an email sign-up that tells you if your game's core message is working. You can run ads for pre-orders and judge the effectiveness of your advertising. This helps you ramp up for your big marketing push at launch. You can charge access for alphas and betas, letting you gauge popular interest in your game. And you can offer discounts, testing if your pricing structure is sound. And finally, with all of this, our goal is to help your marketing so that you can adjust your game plan over time and strengthen it. Then, with all of this knowledge, we want you to go out and have a super impactful launch. So, I'll be hanging around if you guys want to ask me any more questions, help with your particular game's marketing strategy. You can also shoot me an email. You can schedule a consultation or ask me a question. Or you can also book a meeting with one of the many Xola experts, either right outside at the table or at the Xola booth in the South Hall, number 260. Cool. Thank you.